Brace yourself. Get it passed up anytime now. Collect yourself. Things will never be the same in this sad world. Walk around a lot of it, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million missing pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So sit back in your hole.
So good morning, everybody. Good to be with you again today. So yesterday we were talking about Aristotle's definition of goodness. What makes something good? Who can tell me, even if it's not word for word what we said, what makes something good according to Aristotle? Francisco?
Anything.
Okay, so Francisco's hit on the fact that everything that we do, that any person does, is aimed at some good. But what is goodness itself? So Francisco's pointing to the way Aristotle opens every art, every inquiry, every action, every choice is aimed at some good. Goodness itself for Aristotle is a thing being most fully what it is goodness itself. So just since yesterday, my lovely statue of Aristotle is now in 3 pieces. Right? Is this a good statue of Aristotle? No. Why not? Because it broke. So you look at this, and you know it's broken by looking at it, right? Even if you had never seen it before, you know it's broken. Samurai, that must break your heart that Aristotle's broken. You know it's broken just by looking at it, even if you've never seen it before. How do you know it's broken?
It's supposed to be complete.
It's supposed to be complete. Well, a statue is supposed to be, somewhat accurate representation of the thing it depicts. In this case, you know this is supposed to be a man standing on a platform, and that the man standing on the platform, his feet should be connected to his legs, and his head should be connected to his neck. So you know that this is not a good statue. Why? Because it's not fully being the kind of thing that it is. At the same time, we have here an empty container of Ritz Bitz peanut butter crackers. Now, which of these 2 things is a better statue of Aristotle? The broken statue of Aristotle is still a better statue of Aristotle than this, because this is in no way a statue of Aristotle. This is just no longer fully a statue of Aristotle. You want to make that application to people, because I said something yesterday, and we mean it, but it could be taken the wrong way. We talked about how when we behave virtuously, when we make positive choices, when we develop positive habits in our lives, those are the things that make us more fully human, right? So the flip side is that the negative things, the vices, the things that break us, make us, in a sense, less human. Nevertheless, even the most broken human is still more human than any other creature on earth, because he or she is still human. Does anybody burn incense at home? Use incense to make the house or the room smell good? So what does? I do. That's what Alexis does. That's my go-to. So I use this brand of incense. I forget the brand, but not the flavor, but the name of the scent is Shooting Star. All right. It is, and I meant to bring in a stick and pass it around to anyone who wanted to smell it. It is the best smell of all smells that have ever been smelt, all right? It just is what things should smell like. But every package, at least 1/3 of the sticks in the package, I either have to light over and over and over again, or they just are duds, all right? So is that good incense? It's a toss-up. It's certainly not as good as it could be, and yet I still use it because it smells so good, right? So it's missing something, all right? It's wounded, because incense should smell good. Hi, Maria. Incense should smell good, but it should also burn, right? If it burns flawlessly but smells like sewage, it's of no value. If it smells like, I don't know, roses were making cinnamon toast, but it won't burn, then it's no good, right? Notice that I keep using it, though. I keep using it even though it's wounded. Because at least on this side of the great divide between this world and whatever might or might not lie on the other side of it, how often are we going to encounter perfection? We're not. So when Aristotle is calling us to be the best we can possibly be, he's calling us, in a sense, to set perfection as a goal. But how many of us are ever going to reach perfection? Almost certainly zero many of us. Which means the work of ethics, remember we said yesterday, the work of ethics is not, it involves study and learning, but it's not about studying or learning anything. It's about being good and becoming better. About being great and becoming greater. About being happy and becoming happier. Let's say you've got do we have any dog lovers here? I got a bunch of hands going up. Yeah, me too. Me too. I don't currently have a dog, but I do love dogs. So let's say a family has a pet dog, all right? And the family's got a 3-year-old child in the house. And the 3-year-old child steps on the dog's tail, and the dog turns around and attacks the child and hurts the child. Is that a bad dog? No. Because what is a dog? What does it mean to be a dog? It means to be a predatory omnivore, right? Is it a bad pet? Yes, it's a bad pet. Because what it means to be a pet is to be an animal that can, at very least, safely be around human beings. We're all meant for greatness, and we can all be great, but we can only be great at what we actually are. Aristotle's not telling you you can be anything you want. Right? He's telling you you can be a great you. If I really, really, really want to fly, too bad. No amount of virtue, no amount of ethics, no amount of practice is going to get me up there soaring. Now, the desire to fly has inspired people to do things that are human and use their intellect and invent machines capable of flight. But if I want to become half bird, half man, well, that's just not in my nature. Right? Goodness is about living out the nature that a thing actually has. It is the nature of a statue to depict accurately something, and this is no longer living out its nature especially well. It is the nature of the human being to be a rational animal and to be a social animal, to be an animal that lives in community, depends on community, and is produced by community, and therefore has obligations, has duties to the community, duties of justice. So Aristotle will talk later in the text about what justice is, and it's about giving to each person what that person is due. And then we have rights. Aristotle doesn't use rights language. Rights language is a more modern phenomenon, but the concept of rights comes from Aristotle, because if injustice, if not injustice, but if because of justice I must give you that to which you are entitled, right? And you have certain claims on me. You have certain entitlements because I'm your teacher, right? But let's say we were strangers. Would I owe you anything as a stranger? Well, at very least, we can debate on if I owe you anything positively as a stranger. But at very least, I have some serious negative obligations toward you, even as a stranger. If I'd never met Alejandro before, I still owe it to him to not hurt him on purpose for no reason, right? At bare minimum, right? I still owe it to him to not trample on his rights, right? So the whole concept of rights flow out of the virtue of justice, which Aristotle talks a lot about in his Ethics. In that first sentence, the end of the first sentence, so he makes the point that every art, every inquiry, every action, every choice aim at some good. And he says, and hence it has been beautifully said that the good is that at which all things aim. What does it mean for something to be beautiful? Well, if something is good because it is most fully the kind of thing that it is, beauty is the expression of that goodness. This thing is beautiful to the degree that it expresses the kind of thing that it is. So notice that by becoming less good, the statue has also become less beautiful. And by becoming less good and less beautiful, the statue has also become less true. Right? This is a much less true representation of the man Aristotle, because while he lived, though I admit he lived before the time of photographs, but while he lived, his head was attached to his body the entire time. At the beginning of the class, we talked about, beginning of the course, we talked about how, somebody get the door for me, please, how goodness, truth, and beauty are actually the same reality, just considered from different perspectives. And this is why. This is why. To be good is to be most fully the kind of thing a thing is. To be beautiful is to present oneself most fully as the kind of thing a thing is. And to be true, it is what it is. Yes, Ollie, what's up?
I'm sorry, but did Samantha come and leave my book bag in here?
She came in. I don't know anything about your book bag. Sorry. Okay. Let's read what Aristotle says next. But a certain difference is apparent among ends. And here I gave you this note before you read, but I'll remind you. When Aristotle uses the word end or ends, he means it as a goal or a purpose. As in, you've probably heard the phrase, do the ends justify the means? That's using the word ends in the Aristotelian sense. But a certain difference is apparent among ends, since some are ways of being at work, while others are certain kinds of works produced over and above the being at work. And in those cases in which there are ends of any kind beyond the actions, the works produced are by nature better things than the activities. And since there were many actions, the arts and kinds of knowledge, the ends also turn out to be many. Of medical knowledge, the end is health. Of shipbuilding skill, it is a boat. Of strategic art, it is victory. Of household management, it is wealth. But in as many such pursuits as are under some one capacity, in the way that bridle making and all the other skills involved with implements pertaining to horses come under horsemanship, and while this and every action pertaining to war come under strategic art, and in the same way other pursuits are under other capacities, in all of them the ends of all the master arts are more worthy of choice than are the ends of the pursuits that come under them, since the latter are pursued for the sake of those arts. So who in reading this, be honest, who in reading this from like the second syllable was like, what is he saying? Yes, Leo didn't make it to the second syllable. He was sound asleep by the first syllable. So let me use some different examples, and that'll help us understand Aristotle's examples, I think. How many of you have taken the SAT? Okay. And how many of you plan to take it in the near future? All right. What are some things you do to get ready for the SAT? Study. All right. So, get more specific. What do you do to study? Khan Academy, he said. Yeah. What else? We all just use Khan Academy? Anybody buy a study guide? Take a course? Can you imagine someone doing those things? Yeah. Okay, so we'll stick with Khan Academy. So you take Khan Academy in order to do well on the SAT. Why do you want to do well on the SAT? So you can go to college. Why do you want to go to college?
Get a higher education.
Get a higher education. And why do you want a higher education?
So I can get paid more.
Get a better, so we'll take it in 2 steps. Sua said to get a better job, and the reason you want a better job, Alejandro?
So you can get paid more.
Get paid more, and why do you want to get paid more? So we said be rich, but that means the same thing. Live comfortably, and why do you want to live comfortably? So you don't have to struggle. Because how do you feel when you're struggling? So how do you feel when you're not struggling? Good. And good for Aristotle is another word for happy. Notice how at the end of this chain of things lies happiness. Now, let's go back to the beginning of the chain of things. So you're using Khan Academy in order to do well on the SAT. What's more important, Khan Academy or the SAT? The SAT, all right? Once you've taken the SAT, what's the likelihood that you're going to go back and keep doing Khan Academy for S's and giggles? Very low likelihood, okay? So you do the activity for the ends. The purpose is passing the SAT, right? Or you get a good score on the SAT so that you can get into college. Once you get into college, what use do you have for the SAT? You still going to show up every Saturday and just keep taking SATs? You might have to before you get into college. If, Sue, I imagine your first 10 or 12 tries are going to not go very well. But once you've passed it and once you've got into college, then you don't need it anymore. So college is better than the SAT. The SAT is the activity, but the activity is geared toward the ends of college, right? You go into college, many of you, there are there are other reasons to go to college than to get a good job, but let's just, I can't reform your entire personhood. Yes, Grumpy Donna, I'm kind of at work right now. What can I do for you?
Sorry, I was just looking for Samantha.
Okay, everyone's been here, but one at a time. So Samantha's been here, and Ollie's been here, and Maria's been here, and you've been here, but none of you at the same time.
It's because somebody's looking for her.
Oh, somebody's looking for food. Okay.
No, for Samantha.
Oh, for Samantha. Okay. So, I think I made almost all of that point. So when Aristotle says, let's see. So he says, the end of medical knowledge is health. All right. So the activity that a doctor does is designed to make the patient healthy, right? Anyone who, you don't have to answer, but who's had surgery that's willing to raise their hand? So Samurai's had surgery, right? And so the surgery is designed, you don't have to tell us the specifics of what it was. I had surgery years and years and years ago too. It's designed to make you healthy, right? Once you're healthy, you don't go in for more surgery, right? You don't do that. Do you have surgery for fun, Caitlin, at home? Just get out the mirror and the scissors and a YouTube tutorial because you just like surgery? No. So the end is always greater. The end is always greater than the activities that we do to pursue the ends. And the end of from Khan Academy through the SAT, notice how that end was happiness. Aristotle argues that happiness is the greatest human good. The challenge is to make choices that will lead to that good, which means we need to make choices that build us up into more fully human versions of ourselves, not choices that deform us. When we talked about, give me just a second here. Oh, hi, Kimmy. What?
No, I can't.
No. So when we talked about character yesterday, we mentioned that the word, the Greek word that we get character from, it talks about something that's carved or etched into stone or even tattooed into flesh, something that alters and forms and changes what we are. So when we make virtuous choices, when we build virtuous habits, when I am courageous rather than cowardly, which is one extreme, or rash, that's the other extreme. So to be courageous doesn't mean that, I'm gonna try to beat the train on the train tracks in my car. That's not courage. That's rashness. That's stupidity. When we make virtuous choices, courageous choices, honest choices, those are the kinds of things that build us up. They make us more human, and eventually they lead to being the best versions of ourselves, and therefore the happiest versions of ourselves. As you're looking at specific moral questions in the Module 6 roundtables, so off the top of my head, I don't know what all the. So we've got a group talking about abortion in here. Do we have a group talking about war in fourth period too? Yeah. One of the things that you'll want to explore, that you'll want to ask, and one of the things that if you make the mistake of giving me an opportunity to speak, that I will definitely ask is in each of these issues, if I make this choice versus that choice, what does that actually do to me, to my character? What kind of person am I becoming if I choose A or if I choose B? Is A a choice that will make me more fully what I am, that will put the head back on my shoulders, that will attach the feet back to my legs? Or am I making a choice that deforms me and makes me less and less recognizably human? I'm not going to with this statue, but we could, this statue's been through some vice, but we could keep illustrating it. I could keep smashing this until it's no longer recognizable as a statue. People who embrace a vicious life, vicious is the adjective form of vice. If anybody see the Lord of the Rings movies? So only one person, yeah. 2 people did? Okay, 2 people. I'm so old. But embarrassingly, so I'm reading the Lord of the Rings for the first time ever at 45 years old. And so I'm embarrassed that I didn't read it 30 years ago. But there's a character called Gollum in the Lord of the Rings. This is a character who used to possess the magic ring that the film is all about, and then lost it. But in the possession, he became so he's living out the vice of greed. All right, he became so obsessed with this possession that it literally dehumanized him. This would be a better example if you had said yes to have you seen the Lord of the Rings. So in the future, when I'm going to ask you if you've seen something, you need to have seen it. Okay? Some of you guys call yourselves students. All right. Let's look, there's tons more we could talk about, and maybe we'll have a few more conversations like this in between the round tables. This is really material I'm trying out for next semester. I think we're going to go through most of this book early in the semester, next semester, and from now on. If you get a chance, read the whole thing. Do it. It'll make you better. You see, it's not easy to get through. It was only 3 paragraphs we read, and we only talked about one of them. So it wasn't a long reading, but it takes some work to get through Aristotle, but it's worth it, work that's well worth doing. Okay, that is all I need from you for today. Rest of the time is yours.
Walk around the light out a bit, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million missing pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So slip back in your hole, or get back in your cave. If I'm going down, I'm taking someone with me.